What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, coming back at you another AMA Ask Me Anything episode. This one is all about digestion and poop, so get ready. All right, so Eric asked this question, and Eric says, let me first apologize for the poop question. I eat a very steady diet of 2 pounds of beef and half a keto brick a day, and my stool is never solid, and this has been going on for 60 days or so. Thoughts? Salt intake, oh, how I like salt. All right, Eric, great question. You mentioned salt, let's start there. So when it comes to electrolytes, if you are way too high on your sodium or potassium or magnesium, relative to your water consumption, or way too low, that can certainly cause some issues from a digestive and regularity standpoint. And generally speaking, I recommend about a 2-to-1 ratio of supplemental sodium to supplemental potassium. Generally, for most people, starting out at a baseline of about 4,000 milligrams of sodium to 2,000 milligrams of potassium and about 500 milligrams of magnesium a day is a pretty good starting point. Then you could scale up from there. And if you're consuming about a gallon of water a day, that should be a pretty good balance, so to speak. If you're way too high on the salts relative to potassium, that could cause some issues. If you're way too high on the magnesium, you're going to have more fluid coming into your intestinal tract, into your digestive tract. That's going to cause more loose stool as well. So you want to kind of make sure that is stabilized. I've also noticed that if you have a ton of like sparkling water, that can cause some issues with loose stool there. So kind of be mindful of that. As far as the macros go, 2 pounds of meat and half a keto brick is a pretty good intake. But what is the fat ratio of that ground beef? Because everything in the extremes can cause some issues. If you are north of 80-85% of your calories coming from fat, that can contribute to loose stool. If you are significantly higher in protein than fat, to the point where 50, 55, 60% of your calories are coming from fat and the rest protein, that could cause some loose stool as well. Since you're not really consuming much carbohydrate by the sound of it, I wouldn't really worry about that being a contributing factor. So it sounds as though from a macro ratio standpoint, I would try and get a little bit closer to about a 1-to-1 split between grams of fat and grams of protein. That'll put you between about 69 and 72% of your calories coming from fat. That's typically a pretty good baseline. So if you're doing 2 pounds of meat, half a keto brick, targeting something like a 75-25 or an 80-20 blend of beef as opposed to something that's like a 50-50 or super lean like a 93-7. Because it is interesting. If you go very high on the protein, I notice loose stool as well. And the same is true on the opposite end of the spectrum. If I go super high fat ratio, I notice loose stool. Generally speaking, you can change things. And even if it's a perfect ratio, it can sometimes take about 2 weeks for your digestion to stabilize. If you bring in a new food, like if you were to include more vegetation, it may be a 2-week period for your gut microbiome to kind of acclimate to that increased veg and kind of stabilize there. So whenever you make a shift, give it 2 weeks. But with you having gone 60 days now and still noticing loose stool, I would argue that it's probably a result of an extreme towards your macro split or an extreme towards your electrolyte intake relative to water. So I would kind of start with those baselines first, and then from there, increase up or down, increase or decrease based off of what the primary goal and objective is. So that should work for you. Let me know how it goes, brother. Best of luck. And you requested some cookies and cream, or milk and cookies keto bricks rather, so I will send you some milk and cookies bricks. For anybody that does not know how these AMA videos work, if you submit me a well thought out question via the link in the description below and I use your question in an AMA video, then I will send you some free keto bricks with the flavor of your choosing. Thank you so much. Talk to you next time.